Let's talk about net worth and assets, essentially. Africans with a net worth of over $5 million and $50 million rose in Kenya in the 5 years to the end of 2017. But the reverse trend was seen in the continent's biggest economies, Nigeria and South Africa. That is according to the latest edition of the 2018 report of the 2018 Wealth Report by Knight Frank. Now, most of those above the $5 million threshold are in South Africa. There are over 10,000 such individuals in the country, followed by Egypt, Nigeria and Kenya. Now, in Kenya's case, most of these individuals made their fortunes in retail or financial services. Only 6% made their fortunes in manufacturing. Looking forward, though, over the next 5 years, Knight Frank is expecting the numbers to grow in the double digits, and that ranges from 20% in South Africa to 84% in Tanzania. Egypt, however, is expected to see absolutely no growth. Across Africa, there are about 1,200 or so people whose net worth is well over $50 million. But even in this group, even in those over the $5 million threshold, just 47% have succession plans in place. Earlier on, I spoke to the editor of the report to find out why.
It inevitably focuses around you passing on, and for some cultures and people that's quite a difficult thing to deal with, so they don't really want to address it early on, which is the best time to start talking about succession planning because it can be much more efficient. So it's perhaps a way of delaying the inevitable, really.
So it's more of a cultural thing as opposed to a lack of access to individuals who would help you structure such a process?
Well, I mean, the industry here will be slightly less sophisticated than perhaps in the UK, where succession planning has been, a big issue for a long time. A lot of high net worth individuals, their advisors would have specific succession planning departments. But I'm sure it will be catching up in Kenya soon. The banks and the wealth advisors will be offering more succession planning advice.
When we talk about these, like in Kenya's case, by 2017, about 1,300 people with a net worth of over $5 million each. How do they get to that stage? Are they all self-made? What's the gender breakdown between these two?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. We did look at those statistics this year provided by the analyst WealthX. And actually, most of the high net worth Kenyans' wealth has been self-made, so they're entrepreneurial. I think it's just 5% who inherited it. When we talk about the gender balance or imbalance, it's quite apt on International Women's Day. I think only 8% of the ultra high net worth individuals in Kenya are women.
That's a very small number. Do we see something similar, a similar gender imbalance in South Africa and Nigeria as well, with their respective gender imbalance?
I don't have the exact figures. I imagine Nigeria would be about the same. South Africa, probably a few more women represented there.
One last question for you. Blockchain. Seems this was really the buzzword of 2017. Everyone is talking about blockchain this, blockchain that, but we're yet to see tangible products actually coming to market. Everything is still pretty much in the experimental stage. And one of the chapters in the report focuses on if blockchain could revolutionize the property market. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Blockchain is the buzzword, so we wanted to look at it in the Wealth Report this year, and we specifically focused on what it might mean for property markets. And actually, it's not just products. A lot of national land registries, Sweden, for example, are looking at blockchain about how they can make tracking property transactions more efficient. So I think blockchain will help there. But in terms of changing property values or liquidity, we don't see an impact immediately. It will be more happening in the background, making the process more efficient. But away from property, there's a lot of funds that have been set up in luxury investments, for example, based on blockchain technology. But they usually tend to be also connected with a cryptocurrency like Ethereum or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it tends, we're getting into uncharted waters there.
But are we perhaps overblowing this entire idea of blockchain being the revolutionary product that some might think it is?
I don't think it's a game changer. I just think it will be there and people won't even notice. Transactional firms, they'll just start using it if it becomes more efficient, but I don't think it will make a fundamental difference to the way we buy property, particularly high value property. You're still going to need specialist lawyers, specialist valuation advisors to make sure you're getting the right deal. They won't suddenly disappear overnight because blockchain is there. Blockchain might be part of the process, but it won't replace the traditional experts that you need when you're buying an expensive property.